All right, hello everybody, and welcome to a discussion of Ethos, a dark fantasy anthology that has been crafted, that has been put together by the Arcanist Guild. And I have three of the six members of the guild here with me today. I am very excited to be chatting with all three of you about your novellas. And we're going to also describe the three novellas of the authors who are not here with us today. Let me actually mention all six of them. So today we obviously have Morgan Shank here with us, and his is titled Ascension. Hello, Morgan. It's so awesome to see you.
Good to see you too.
And thank you. And we also have Jonathan. By the way, I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your name. So correct my pronunciations, please. We have Jonathan Neves Mayers with a good pronunciation. Okay.
Very good. Yep.
Reading lots of fantasy helps with some things in life, right?
There you go.
The Lies of Zendis is the novella that Jonathan has contributed to this collection. And we have Bethany, who goes by BSH Garcia, and her story is called From the Heart of the Sea. That is the novella that has been contributed by Bethany to this collection. And the three who are not here with us are Benjamin Averin. Averin, how do you say his last name? Do you know?
I
Averin?
believe it's
Hey,
Averin.
hey.
That's how I've been
Averin?
pronouncing it.
Averin.
Mm.
Okay. Benjamin, correct us in the comments, please. His story, which is brilliant, by the way. I did read it. It's called Phantasm. And then we have EJ. Is it Doble? Like rhymes with noble? Do you
I
think?
think so.
I
Okay.
believe so.
Again, EJ, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But his story is called Every Man for Himself. And we have James Lloyd Doolin's story, One Matters Not. So, six great authors. I'm so privileged to be with the three of you here today. But let's start with where did this come from? How did you form the Arcanist Guild? What was your purpose in doing this? How did this all come about? Any of you three who want to jump in on that, go for it.
I
So
was last,
I
so
believe you were. I believe it was inceptioned by EJ and Benjamin, actually.
Oh,
I
okay.
want to say about 2 years ago. Morgan, does that sound right? Or like a year and a half at least, maybe.
It, yeah, it was at least a year and a half, if
Yeah.
not
And
two.
they were seeking out like-minded fantasy authors who wanted to explore deeper themes, that wanted to dive into more morally gray characters and complex plots in the human condition. So they reached out to a few people and started forming this guild. And it was started just so we could talk about our stories and ideas. But we started tossing around the concept of doing an anthology about a year ago. And it kind of like our pitch in our Kickstarter video is like we all came together because we write this type of fantasy. So why not center an anthology on it?
Oh, how cool. So you guys were actually kind of like in a writers group together. And have you been critiquing each other's books and stories? Have you, as like a support writers group or that kind of thing? Or how did that
More
evolve?
like an emotional support group.
Okay.
But yeah, no, bouncing some ideas and trying to support each other just through the journeys. But I think that the anthology was always kind of a goal. Like we knew we would want to work on something collaborative at some point.
Okay. Oh, that is so cool. And we all do need our support, that's for sure. If you're going at it as an author of any type, it really is very meaningful to have fellow authors to talk to, share your stories with your war stories, literal and otherwise.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's really cool. And so this is how Ethos came to be, essentially. That is really awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the stories in a non-spoiler way first. Actually, we're going to stick to non-spoilers for the entirety of this. But I want to talk about the three who are not here first. And I did read Benjamin's story, Phantasm. So I'll start with that one. And then perhaps we could talk about EJ's story and James's story, those of you who read it. Those are the only two I haven't read yet. And I do apologize to those two. I didn't have time to get to those. But let's talk about those a little bit so people have an idea, just a general idea of what these stories are about. I think the title expresses it pretty well. It's a dark fantasy anthology. And I think, Bethany, you said it really well as well, that these are very theme-oriented, idea-driven stories. And that is something that I really loved about these, all of them. And also, when you're writing a novella, it's tricky to write a story that does all that and gives you convincing characters. It's really tough to write. The less room you have, the harder the task becomes. But I thought
Mhm.
you guys really landed that beautifully, and Benjamin did so really, I thought, marvelously in Phantasm. This is a story that to me speaks to the heart of belief and a kind of fundamentalism, the idea of also how we tend to, even when there's evidence to the contrary right in front of our noses, we have a tendency to reinforce our own beliefs, to selectively see the world as we want to see it. And that especially is more true if you live in a kind of a cult-like circumstance, which is definitely what we see portrayed in the story here, which I'm not going to say a lot of specifics, but this is a kind of medieval post-apocalyptic scenario in a way, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
where something awful has happened that has transformed society for the worse. And you have this surviving group that believes a certain thing about what's left of the world. And it's really interesting to see the story unfold and how the POV character particularly comes to understand that what he believed to be the truth is maybe not exactly what he thought. So yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was just a
Yeah.
really fascinating read, very full of tension as that POV character's beliefs are challenged and he's taken through this journey. There's just a ton of natural tension in that kind of a journey, really, between what you thought was true and what you're increasingly beginning to see might actually contradict that. So yeah, I just thought it was a brilliant story. Any thoughts from
Mhm.
you guys on Phantasm?
But we put it last for a reason.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Amazing story. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know order wise here. Um, I can go after you or vice versa.
Yeah, whoever
okay.
wants to jump in, don't be shy. Go for it.
I did really, I think what I most appreciated about it, and because as Bethany mentioned, putting it last, because I think it is especially timely, more and more so. You just see a lot of like there's so many voices around us in culture and online all the time, and it becomes challenging to know how to process what truth is and how to know what you can trust in and believe, especially with AI, and exploring the nature of I think the reason I liked his story so much was exploring the nature of how you decide what to believe in and
Mm,
how tightly you hold to that, even when evidence might point to the contrary, because after a certain point, you just really want this to be true. Whatever this thing is, you just really want this to be true, even if it might not be true. Um, and I mean, the power to, as you said, reinforce the narrative, even if it's false. The capacity for us to reinforce narratives, to tell ourselves, to assure ourselves that we're on the proper course in life,
mm,
and the lengths to which we can go to do that. I was just learning. I mean, I was reading. I've been reading a lot about storytelling in general and different mediums of how to present story and narrative. And someone was remarking on the power of spoken word, and studies have shown, like in cults and stuff like that, you can start to change someone's perspective about something. It takes 30 minutes with someone knowing how to speak and what to say. In 30 minutes or less, you can start to change someone's orientation. You can just change their perspective and their beliefs. And when you start thinking about it in terms of like cults and philosophies, radical philosophies that you might take too far, that's kind of disturbing to think about. And it makes you kind of reevaluate what are the narratives I'm telling myself? What are the narratives we're telling ourselves? And how might we be intentionally misleading ourselves
Yeah.
to satisfy certain beliefs we have.
There's also an element of power in this, and it's often the case that these false narratives are being put out there by someone in bad faith, a manipulator, someone who wants to people to believe a certain thing in order for them to be afraid, in order for them to be under their power, under their sway. Because it's when people are afraid that they're most likely to do terrible things. And I think that's a big part of the manipulation we see in the story as well, which is
Mhm.
really, I mean, I thought it was just a psychologically, fascinating study in a sense, but in a compelling story,
Yeah.
Bethany, you've read the story as well, right? Phantasm?
Yes, I have. I mean, you guys covered a lot of the points that I was going to make, but without giving away too many spoilers too, I think it's powerful, the relationship between two of the characters and how the belief comes between them when it really shouldn't, and how socially relevant that is right now as well. Just, I think care like a lot of like beliefs become so deeply entwined in people that it becomes part of their identity, and I think that's another need for keeping the blinders on, because to deconstruct that is to deconstruct self, and it's a big ask of anyone, especially somebody who's internalized it so strongly. And so in some ways that character is not just clinging on to the belief but to themselves and everything as they know it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Wow. Yeah. Excellent. So definitely a story I think we can all endorse. Jonathan, I think you had not quite finished this one. Am I correct? I'm remembering it that way.
I need to start it tomorrow, so I'm just finishing Bethany's one. Like, I'm going to finish that probably after this, and then yeah, I'm looking forward to Benjamin's one tomorrow.
Okay, good, good, good. In that case, uh, perhaps we can, you three, those of you who have read these next two stories can give us an idea of what they're about because again, I'm sorry I didn't get to them, but we want to talk about EJ's story, Every Man for Himself. This is EJ Doble, assuming that it does indeed rhyme with noble. But yeah, Every Man for Himself. Which of you have read that and who wants to start telling us what this one's about?
Yeah, it's set in a hamlet, a rural hamlet, and I think I've already seen a few reviews of that one, basically comparing it to The Witcher. So essentially,
Mhm.
there's a
Okay, cool.
character, Solomon Kirk, who is called upon by the villagers to. It's not a spoiler because there's a massive illustration that's been circulating around socials for the past 24 hours. A three-headed dog, a Cerberus or Kerberos, I always forget,
Oh
it's hard
yeah,
to
the
see.
art. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so essentially it's his he has his own reasons for disposing of it. And there's yeah, there's it's very difficult to say much more without
It,
giving the whole game away.
Bethany, what were you going to say about it?
I was just commenting on it's a very spoiler heavy story. So like a lot of the impact it does kind of hit at the end, but I think this one's probably one of our more action packed stories, and it does have those Witcher vibes, but with more depth to them. And there's a really great horse main character that I just love.
Hmm.
So
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then Jonathan mentioned the art. We need to pump the art
mhm.
here, guys. I mean, there's some cool art
Yes.
in this anthology too, right? Yeah, I know at least how many of the illustrations are inside the book?
So we have two commissioned right now,
Okay.
ready to go. And then we're hoping to unlock one for each of the stories with stretch goals and
Okay. Okay.
potentially even some additional. Just really depends how far we go.
Sweet. And the artists' names?
Is Omar Tunk, I believe.
Yeah.
Omar Tunk, yeah, he did the interior illustrations. Our cover design was by Hannah Baker, and then
Okay.
our typography was Jay Caleb. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, good. Got to give those people credit
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Hmm.
They were great. We were really picky seeking out all of our art and trying to find somebody who could properly capture, especially with the cover, capture like the essence of all of the stories without pointing too strongly to one.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I have seen the both pieces that exist already. We're going to talk about the other one when we talk about your story, Bethany, because I think it's a fantastic piece of art that goes beautifully with the story. But first, we need to talk about James's story, One Matters Not. Now, who's read that one, and who would like to give us a sense of what James is up to and what ideas is he exploring in One Matters Not?
So I did read James's in its beta stage. Um, he definitely jumped straight into that morally gray dilemma from the get-go.
Okay.
His whole premise of his tale is, what will you do to save the many? Like, is it worthwhile to sacrifice the few if it benefits the greater good?
Uh-huh.
So the whole story grapples with that. The main character is someone who goes out and collects these children for a reason that you learn as you read through the story. And she's kind of like, I guess she starts maybe a bit more like driven in her beliefs, and a lot of it is kind of a slow unraveling or at least challenging of those beliefs and of what she does as the collector of these children,
Okay.
because she's kind of made it up to herself that it's justifiable based on what it means for the greater good.
Oh,
But working with this child kind of throws all that for a loop. So we've got like that jaded, leader with like the little child who throws a wrench in things. So you kind of have those tropes are always really great, like in Last of Us or Witcher even. So
very cool. Thank you for that. And I just wanted to get it out. I do have a copy of James's book. You don't know if any.
Yes.
I wanted to ask as well. Do you guys know if for the other three, but also I'd like to know for yourselves, are any of these stories connected to your main series or any series that you've written? Do you happen to know if anybody's done that, or are these all independent of the other series that you've written?
I think everyone's independent except me because I guess I'm stuck in my world. But no, I, I think James it was, I could be wrong. I think he might be teasing a future series he wants to write. I don't know that for
Oh,
sure
Yes.
okay.
though.
Okay,
Yes,
but
I think that's
Um,
not
what he
this
said.
world. Okay.
yeah, so I think he might have been exploring a potential series. And Jonathan, weren't you potentially exploring a new series with this one as well, or am I also?
Yeah, no, because when I got recruited to the guild, I was in the middle of writing the sequel to my main series, Song, and I
Ah,
had some ideas of a trilogy I would like to do once I get out of that world. And then Bethany mentioned, "Oh, there's this thing happening. Would you like to be interested?" I'm thinking, okay, I can bring that forward a bit. So yeah, I came up with a story which is essentially going to be a prequel to hopefully a trilogy or series or something in the future. So but yeah, it's definitely a separate world from what I've done.
very cool. All right. All right. So I think that does it for our three absent members. So now it's time to put you guys on the hot seat and talk about your books. Actually, it should only feel warm from all the praise, really. That's all. Because I really enjoyed myself tremendously with all three of your stories. Since Morgan was here first, I'm going to pick on him first, and you guys can chime in if you've read Morgan's story. I know you have, Bethany. And Jonathan, did get to Morgan's?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
okay,
read this.
cool. So all three of us are going to embarrass you now, Morgan. How's that?
Nice. We'll see if I can handle it. I don't know.
No, I enjoyed Ascension is the title of the novella, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I thought you were doing some really cool, and as you said, we sort of met here first before everybody else showed up, and it's the word you used was trippy, and I thought, oh yeah, that's a good word. It is really trippy, but it is a kind of a visionary story. I would call it visionary. That's a nicer way of saying trippy, but. It's a story in which you have a character who there is a kind of quest that we see immediately, and I don't want to say who exactly is on the quest because that might get a little spoilery. But I don't think it's too spoilery to say there are five individuals on this quest, and we have one POV, and that character's POV is really interesting because we get a sense we're just dropped into the middle of this quest, a spiritual, very spiritual quest, a kind of a it's hard to tell initially, is it a world saving or a world ending quest? In fact, maybe both in a sense. But we get this character's a sort of over the course of this a kind of reveal of this character's motives, and this character has ideas that might be rather independent of what might appear to be the purpose that they've been set upon. And this character has some revolutionary ideas within the context of this seemingly traditional quest. This is a thing that's been done. There's this very cyclical nature to this event. This is as close as I can get without getting into spoilers, really, but I think that describes it pretty well. And this character's perspective on this, you know what it reminded me of? Now, there it is with the title Ascension. Can I say I think I can say this. There's a sort of a tower involved in this story. There's a tower involved. And I was reminded in some ways with the cyclicality of it and the defeat of the POV's expectations in some ways. I was reminded of the Dark Tower series by Stephen
Mhm.
King, which I loved. I love that series. And just the weirdness of it, the visionary aspect of it. So, am I right or am I wrong on that, Morgan? Is there some Dark Tower perhaps in this? Yeah.
It was definitely, yeah, you're pretty much spot on.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I was yeah, I was very that was one of the first I read of Stephen King's and The Dark Tower. And that first I only read the first book. I didn't even get farther into the series, but
Boo.
that
Okay.
first
Okay.
book I was like, I know, there's so much. The TBR is so freaking
Right.
long.
It's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
It's so bad. I end up, some people have like curated lists, and I have like a list, and then it's just sort of whatever I'm feeling in the moment, I'll pick that one. I'll pick that one. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, you're a mood
uh,
reader, as they say. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
so the Dark Tower was one, I think it was last October actually. It was just I needed something that was maybe a little bit more trippy, spooky, dark fantasy-esque.
Yeah.
But it did definitely really resonate a lot of those vibes. For me, so each of us came to the table and we were each trying to pick like when the idea for like an anthology of radical philosophies taken too far. Um, I think that kind of evolved from my memory where it started was let's just explore, let's just deep dive into some kind of philosophy that we're each like, there's a lot of really interesting elements to this, and it changes the way people think about the world. And so I did mine on Platonism. I hope I'm saying that right.
You are. Yeah. Yeah.
Platonism, just because it has been such a huge factor in so much of the development of the West. And it's kind of been this timeless theme that's kind of spilled over into a lot of other different philosophies and religions, and it's helped thinkers construct viewpoints for their own religions, like Christianity is a big one that comes to mind, very significantly impacted by Platonism and its development. I mean, just it's the idea that there are essential forms for different things. Like you have the example you always hear is the table, and there's a form for the table somewhere. There's a perfect form of a table that we are deriving or pulling this table from. And so I was like, ooh, okay, so what if you just went not just the forms of objects, but like diving into like the forms of life itself. And so, yeah, I have seen people in some of the reviews say this one's kind of heady, trippy, philosophical. I had to think about this one a while, and I
Yeah.
wasn't too sure how it was going to land, but everyone that read it in our group was like, this was kind of strange, and this was kind of trippy and
It's strange.
dreamy, kind of like interesting, but everyone seemed to still enjoy it. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's all I need. But it is very much a character sets out on a quest, um, and it involves the now I'm trying to do it without spoiling it. It involves
It's hard.
Hmm.
they do go out on this quest, and it is cyclical, and it requires them to engage with the underlying forms of life. And it is kind of this question of, is this to save the world? Is this to end the world?
Hmm.
And he has unique plans that aren't really revealed to anyone around him.
Right.
And it is this quest that we join him in to figure out if we were to drill down to what is life really about and what is the purpose of life. It was an attempt to kind of explore that.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm sticking with my adjective, visionary. I think it's the most
Mhm.
visionary of the stories. So yeah, brilliant stuff. How about you two? Do you have thoughts on Ascension that you want to share with us?
I think it's it being the shortest of the six novelettes. It's the one that takes us on the most of a journey, as it were. I felt that there was a lot that happened, but it was very introspective, and it was, yeah, I think trippy is the best way to. I was reading it on the bus home after work the other day. And I was just like, this is this is quite a trip, but yeah, it's just something. Again, it's very difficult to say much without spoiling it, and there's even one element which because I didn't read any of the blurbs. I've tried to go, like, focus on my story, and then once I've finished that, just go straight into the other story. So I didn't really know much about it, and I don't even know if it's in the blurb, so I'm not going to say. But I was surprised at what what the characters involved, okay, if I could say it. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, there are a couple of really shocking moments
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Bethany, what are your thoughts?
I really like how it stands out stylistically in the collection of stories, and it's shorter than the others, but I think that adds to its strength because it is one that you read and you're like, I'm going to read this again so I can better unpack. Because when I was actually doing the beta read, I read it once and then like the second time to digest, and I like that it has that about it. I think it's a very rereadable piece, and it's one of those ones where when you read it again, you start to unpack more. Um, and I kind of wanted to strangle your main character a lot, spoiler.
Me
But it
too.
was good. I think one of the early reviewers even mentioned that. She's like, I kind of hated him, but I think I was meant to hate him, so it was good. And yeah, I think it was really bold and nicely executed.
Oh, I
Mhm.
agree. That's well stated. Yeah. Yeah. Good, good. Yeah. Well, I'm so tempted to jump into spoilers, but we're not doing that. But I do agree with you, Bethany. This is a very rereadable story because you want to come back to it and say, "What? Oh, whoa! That okay? I need to do this again so that I can get a clearer picture from the start of what was happening there." Because I think
Hmm.
a lot does change by the end. But we
Hmm.
are moving on now to let's do Bethany's story. From the Heart of the Sea. Now, I do want to compliment you again on the wonderful illustration that accompanies your story. I thought that it was just perfect. Really great
Yeah.
reference point. So kudos to the artist there.
Hmm.
And but the story itself, in terms of some of the themes that it evoked in me as I was reading it, I thought this was really cool in the sense that you have a society and it's underwater, which is awesome. These
Hmm.
you have a specific name for them, but they're essentially mare people.
Yeah, the Mira. Yeah, there.
Yep, yep, yep.
Hmm.
Very cool. And you have a dynamic happening in the story where you have people in charge of this society, of this culture, who are kind of conservative in the sense that they don't want change. They want to take things slow and steady. This is the way we've always done things, and we can't be radical. We can't upset the boat, as it were, although they're underwater.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? So there are these people who
Hmm.
are essentially perhaps slow to respond to a crisis because they can't see past the lens. They can't see anything other than, through the lens through which they have ruled, let's say, successfully for a long time. They've been in power,
Hmm.
and that in itself has caused them to be, in a sense, not just slow to respond, but maybe even blind to the crisis that is erupting around them. And this is told, I thought, very skillfully. I thought that was a perfect way to do this through the dynamic of two sisters. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to go into in much more detail than that, but I really love how you approached. Okay, you got to write a novella. It's not a lot of space. How am I gonna get this big idea into this relatively short story? And you did it through these two sisters, which I thought was just beautiful. I thought that was a really great touch, not only because you succeeded in exploring that theme of how we sometimes need to change our perspective in order to respond to our environment, to what's happening around us. How that's actually that radical shift in perspective can sometimes be not only called for, but necessary for our survival. But I thought you did it in a way that really got me invested in the story because I really loved the relationship between these two sisters. It's complex. Obviously, there's a lot of love and affection, but there's a difference in view. And that is a
Mhm.
fundamental part of, I think, how you were exploring these themes. I thought that was just beautiful that you were able to condense it into this relationship between these two sisters. It was very powerful, actually. So really well done to you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what about you two, Morgan and Jonathan? If you, I can't recall who's read what at this point, but if you did read this really great story from the Heart of the Sea, what are your thoughts on it in a non-spoiler way?
So I'm halfway through it.
Aha.
Someone has
Okay. Hope I
someone
didn't ruin
someone ha
anything for you.
yeah. So someone has done a bad thing, and things are kicking off. That's where I'm up to. And no, I think Philip, you've hit the nail on the head. It's the thing that stands out for it is the relationship between the two women. Miriam, is it, or how do you say it?
Miriam, yeah.
Miriam? And no, the relationship between it's just complex, and you can sense there's a lot of love between them, but there's underlying things with both of them. And yeah, as I say, I'm only halfway through, but it's yeah, very, very engaging and absolutely loving it. I'm looking forward to finishing it tonight.
Yeah, brilliant. Not to get too personal here, Bethany, but do you have a sister?
I do. Yes.
Aha.
Might have been unpacking some things. Writing is therapy.
Yeah. Are you the older or the younger in that?
I'm the older sister.
Ah,
I've
okay.
got
I kind
two
of thought.
younger brothers and a younger sister.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
you're the
it
responsible one. You're the responsible one.
I think, yeah, a little bit of both. When we were exploring, like, we wanted to do philosophical things, for me, I always have to start with character because if I don't have character there, I can't build a story around it. So I was feeling like I was kind of vibing with the sibling conflict motif at the time. And then this culture, this underwater race that I have, I've only explored like the surface dwellers in my series so far. So
Ah,
these
okay.
people have always just been kind of mentioned, and I've always known that they were kind of a bit more aligned with like stoicism and that they were just very closed off. And so they just seemed like the perfect opportunity to finally get underwater and tackle these themes through the lens of this complicated relationship.
Oh, how cool. So
So,
what's happening? I'm not going to be too specific here, but what's
mm,
happening to
yeah,
them environmentally, is that connected to your series? That is what's been happening up on the land.
it is. Yes.
Oh, so
Hmm.
cool. Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
It's awesome. It's actually awesome because I've read all of Bethany's stuff and I can see the connections, and it's like it's really, really exciting to see. I've been waiting to get into this world underwater to see what they're up to. So it's all it seems like you've had a plan all along, Bethany, which is good.
Yes. I need these novellas to finish writing the rest of the series, I guess.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
Hmm.
Okay, so but this is a great, I think, I mean, I haven't read your other books yet,
Hmm.
but I feel like this is a really good introduction to that world. Do you agree?
Hmm. Yeah, this one is truly standalone. I
Hmm.
wanted it to be completely digestible and readable, like outside the lens of anything else I've written. So it is set in the world, but it's not like it's not, you don't have to have read anything else to understand these people in this situation and this story, especially since they're so isolationist.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. And Morgan, is this one you have not yet read, or have you read
I am very excited to start it. I was just
okay.
about to start it. I gotta say though, public
Mm.
praise for all of the reasons that you said that you liked this one. You will love the rest of her other work
Okay.
because she was talking about like characters and everything, and I was there were only two. There were two authors in the group that I had actually specifically read their other works when I was invited. I'd read EJ's and I'd read Bethany's, and I hadn't been exposed to anyone else yet in terms of their specific writing, but just from those two alone, I was like, this is going to be so awesome because I have so enjoyed um, Bethany's other series because of the characters, very specifically. They're always so dynamic. They each have their own voice. You can read dialogue by one of them and not have any attribution to it, and you know who it is. Like they're all unique. They all have specific voice, very complex. Always the character conflicts driving the story. I've always been really happy with that. So I'm very excited
Mhm.
to dig into this story of hers.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Something tells me you're going to get a lot out of it. Yeah. Yeah. So, Jonathan, are you ready to be on the hot seat now?
Let's do
Mhm.
it.
Let's do it. The Lies of Zendis. Now, when I read your story, it actually seemed to me like the most concept driven of the stories. And I thought, okay, this could be fantasy. You could also maybe even call it sci-fi-ish in a sense. But what I thought was fantastic about it was almost how metaphorical it felt at times and how applicable to our world in on so many levels in so many ways. But fundamentally, what we have here is a very literalized, in a sense, haves and have nots situation, right? We have
Mhm.
a group of people on one side of a rift, which is quite literal in this story, and you have a group of people on the other side. And the people on the other side, we're getting mainly the perspective of the have-nots, the people on the side where, unfortunately, they were on the wrong side, let's say, of history or whatever, at least on a superficial level. Because what I thought was one of the brilliant things I thought you did here was you show us how the people who think of themselves as the haves, the ones who are privileged, that's a situation that it negatively affects the people in on that side too, doesn't it? Because when you have
Mhm.
a world of haves and have-nots, it's as if when other people are not free, you can't really experience, even if you're one of the privileged, you don't really have freedom yourself, do you? In a situation like that, because you have people who are suffering and maybe you can convince yourself that they deserve it or that, you don't care because they're somehow less, or that kind of thing, which is certainly a dynamic we see in the story. Maybe you can convince yourself, but I think on some level, you're not free as long as those people are also not free. So we get this story. It's a kind of an adventure, and it is from, as I said, more or less the perspective of a have-not character who thinks that being granted some of the privileges of the haves is going to make life better, and it's not. It doesn't go where he thinks it's going to go. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
put it mildly,
Yeah.
doesn't quite go as planned. And we do get an alternative perspective, in a sense, introduced in there too. We get a bit of a have character who's realized that being in this privileged position is not all it's cracked up to be. That maybe life would be freer over there, and it's not just a grass is greener on the other side situation here. It's a genuinely like this society I'm in is sick, and the way we live, the way we exploit, there is something fundamentally wrong here. So I'm dancing around spoilers here. I don't want to get too more specific, but
Mm,
well done in exploring these themes. I thought that was just fantastic, and
thank you.
give you a chance to say a few words, but also uh, I think again, Morgan, you haven't yet read this one, so you can chime in if you wish, though. But Bethany, you have. So maybe
Yes.
before we let Jonathan have a word, you could say what you think about the lies of Zendis, and the deceit is there in the title too,
Yeah.
which I thought was really important.
There are a lot of lies, Jonathan. I'm still mad about some of them.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry.
forgiving you. No, I love how a lot of things kind of came off, especially characters at face value at the very beginning, and how we slowly peeled back their layers, and everybody was so complex and I guess a little tainted at the end, and just watching this crew of people who have all this history and have been together, and then watching this pursuit of the have like tear them apart, and
Hmm.
that there's some big like reveals that I can't say for spoiler reasons that just really make you sit and question people's motives. And by this point, at least for me, I was invested in a lot of the characters even after I'm learning these things about them, and then I'm sitting here very conflicted about them as individuals. And I think there's just morality is really hanging throughout this whole story, and it just kind of it's like a pendulum, like going back and forth. And I don't know if that's all making sense, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the emotional turmoil of it as they go through this adventure. And I also really liked the grounding. I don't know if this is spoiler, but one of the main character has a sort of grounding character back home that's almost like a conscience. And I thought that was really nice it how we sort of like watched even that devolve over the course of the story. And I know I'm being really vague without trying to give this away, but I thought that particular relationship was really nicely handled and very believable.
Yeah,
Thank you.
one of the questions the story raised for me too is how is it that some people seem to wake up? People in, let's say, the privileged position, and why do they form a conscience and see that the world they're in rests upon oppression and exploitation, and that their privilege comes at a cost for other people? Why do some people wake up to that and others not? And then, of course, you have the people longing for that privilege and not thinking about, well, to get there, I kind of have to step on some people,
Mhm.
to be there, right? So it's fascinating to me, though, how some people wake up, and most don't. And that was something that you made me think about a lot, Jonathan, in the story. So yeah.
On that note, too, just kind of, do you ultimately have to become the villain to get what you want? Like,
Mm,
are these characters, do they, no matter what, going to lose their humanity trying to achieve this? Is there any way to maintain humanity and achieve this thing?
yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. So I don't know, Jonathan, are we on the right track here with what you were thinking about when you were writing this?
Well, on track and even more, like you guys come up with things that I like. It's great that you've taken it in that way because I mean, I started writing a few years ago. Like, I won't get too much into it, but because of there was some things going on at home, quite personal and hard things. And there's a series which some people might have heard of called Red Rising,
Uh-huh.
and by Pierce Brown, and that is it's one of my favorite reads. I couldn't say it's like the best thing ever, but I love it. I come back to it time and time again. And a friend read The Lies of Zendis and said, "Yeah, there's red rising all over it." And I
Uh-huh.
purposely tried not to put anything in there, but I can see where he's coming from. And it when I because I outlined the first book of this, hopefully a trilogy coming out in the future in the Zendis world, and it was essentially in the perspective, there's well, three POVs, but the main perspective is from someone actually in the realm, in the capital, in the place where they've got all the power and everything. And I thought, well, at least for this prequel to have it on the other side, so we can see that first. So see from the bottom going up rather than the other way
Mhm.
around. And yeah, it was interesting writing it. I actually had a prologue and an epilogue um, for the prequel, which was another character who's not mentioned at all in the prequel, and because I thought it would be better for the prologue and epilogue to go in the first book of the trilogy, and I don't want to spoil too much about it, but what we haven't mentioned, which is it's in the blurb, so it's not exactly a spoiler, but there's essentially a war of gods that happened years and years ago. And these gods are who have once the war finished, their powers are now resting in this realm in the mainland. And there's certainly going to be hopefully in the future some traces of that coming back into it. So I've got a lot of directions I can go in. I'm just trying to just yeah take it one book at a time. But I'm really glad that you enjoyed and you got all of that out of it. It's amazing to be honest.
Yeah. Cool. 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 Yeah. And Morgan, I know you're going to enjoy it when you get to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how um exploring how these ideas not only affect the individuals, but the wider society, the people around them. And just from the internal Arcanist Guild dialogue, when we've been reading each other's works, I've heard multiple people express to Jonathan how emotionally uh, unprepared they were for the story. So I'm excited to see how that resolves.
I'm sitting there like DMing him at midnight. I'm so mad at you right now.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love that, to be honest.
I mean, there's devastating loss in this story, but I think there's also some beauty in it, believe it or not.
Mhm,
There is some
Mm,
beauty in it as well, and but you have to see it through the tears, you know.
mhm.
mm,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, this was thank you guys first of all for giving me the privilege of getting an e-arc of this anthology. I really, really enjoyed my time with it, and I hope that people hearing about it will go out and check it out. Please tell us what's the best way for people to get a hold of a copy of this anthology, Ethos.
Mm,
Anyone?
So we're we're running a Kickstarter campaign. Um, it's going to be starting October 14th,
Hi.
and it's going to run through the 30th. And we're doing an initial run through Kickstarter because we really wanted to just package a beautiful book. We got a special hard case design done to accompany the cover art. We, have two of what will hopefully be 6 to 8 illustrations. Um, through that. So the initial run will exclusively be through Kickstarter. We're going to have a hardback, a paperback, and an ebook available. Once it's all said and done, we will probably have ebooks at some point after the campaign. So I would just say keep an eye on our socials for that. But right now, the Kickstarter is definitely the goal.
Okay, so cool. So I'm going to put a link in the description for folks to go ahead and order, be part of this Kickstarter, which I think is fantastic. And we got to get lots of people on board so we can get more of that wonderful art as well. So I'm very excited. And by the way, that is today because I'm going to put this video out on the 14th on
Yeah.
Tuesday. So it's live today, guys. So
Okay.
go check out the Kickstarter. That's a no-brainer, really, if you want to support some wonderful fantasy authors. But thank you again, you three, for your time. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk with the other three members of the guild, but I think you guys represented them very well. And thank you again for your time. And yeah, until next time, everybody.
thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank you for
much.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you
Pleasure.
for reading.
Yeah.